I was signing my daughter's birth certificate when the nurse said, "Congratulations, Dad." Except I wasn't Dad at all, and my wife knew it the whole time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it all began to unravel. At Emma's 4th birthday party, with purple balloons tied to our mailbox and 30 people crowded into our backyard, none of them seeing what I couldn't see yet. The cake was from Emma's favorite bakery, vanilla with raspberry filling, 4 pink candles spelling out her name. Sarah had spent the morning arranging everything perfectly, the way she always did. Matching plates, coordinated napkins, a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Princess," in glitter letters that would probably be stuck to our deck for the next 6 months. Emma wore a purple dress with white polka dots. Her dark hair was pulled into 2 pigtails with ribbons Sarah had ironed that morning. Ironed the ribbons. That's the kind of mother Sarah was, or the kind I thought she was. I was manning the grill, burgers and hot dogs for the adults, chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs for the kids. My mother Margaret stood next to me, holding a glass of lemonade, watching Emma open presents in the shade of our oak tree. "She's getting so big," Mom said. She had that soft look she got whenever she watched Emma, the one that made the corners of her eyes crinkle. 4 years old already. "Don't remind me," I said, flipping a burger. "Soon she'll be asking for car keys." Mom laughed, but then her expression shifted, just slightly, like she'd noticed something but wasn't sure if she should say it. "What?" I asked. "Nothing, it's just..." She paused, took a sip of lemonade. "Emma's got such unique features, doesn't she? Those dark eyes, that olive complexion." I looked across the yard. Emma was tearing into a present from her cousin, some kind of art set with markers and stickers. Her face was pure joy, all teeth and dimples. "She's beautiful," I said. "Oh, absolutely," Mom said quickly. "I just meant you and Sarah are both so fair, and Emma's..." "Kids look like whoever they look like, Mom." She nodded, but I could tell she wanted to say more. Instead, she squeezed my arm and walked over to help Sarah arrange the cake on the table. That's when Uncle Ross showed up, my dad's brother, late as always, carrying a present wrapped in newspaper comics because he'd forgotten to buy gift wrap. Again. He gave Emma a big hug, ruffled her hair, then came over to grab a burger. 4 years old, he said, shaking his head. "Time flies, brother. She's got her daddies." He stopped, looked at Emma, looked at me. His smile flickered. "Wait, whose eyes are those?" The question hung there like smoke. 2 weeks later, Emma fell off the swing at the park. 1 second she was pumping her legs, shouting, "Higher, Daddy, higher." The next second she was on the ground, holding her arm, crying in that high-pitched wail that makes every parent's heart stop. I scooped her up. Her forearm was already swelling. Sarah met us at the emergency room, still in her work clothes, mascara smudged from crying in the car. "Is she okay? Is she okay?" Sarah kept asking, holding Emma's good hand while we waited for the doctor. "Probable fracture," the nurse said. "We'll need x-rays. And with the swelling, we might need to check for internal bleeding. We'll do a quick blood panel just to be safe." Emma got her x-ray, clean break, nothing serious. They put her in a purple cast that matched her favorite dress. She was giggling by the time they finished, asking if she could get everyone at preschool to sign it. Then Dr. Patterson came in. Mid-50s, kind eyes, the kind of doctor who kneels down to talk to kids at their level. He'd been great with Emma, explaining everything in simple words, giving her a sticker for being brave. But when he looked at me, his expression changed. "Mr. Harrison," he said, and his voice had that careful tone doctors use when they're about to tell you something you don't want to hear. "Could we speak privately for a moment?" Sarah stayed with Emma while I followed Dr. Patterson into a small consultation room. White walls, a desk with a computer, a chart on the wall showing blood types. He closed the door. "Mr. Harrison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to understand I'm not trying to pry into your personal life. But Emma's blood work came back and there's a discrepancy. My mouth went dry. What kind of discrepancy? He pulled up Emma's chart on the computer, turned the screen toward me. I saw numbers, medical terms I didn't understand. But then I saw the blood types listed in clean digital font. Patient AB negative. Mother A positive. Father O positive. Dr. Patterson pointed to the screen. This is a genetic impossibility, Mr. Harrison. Two parents with A and O blood types cannot produce a child with AB negative blood. It's not just rare, it's impossible. The room tilted slightly. What are you saying? He leaned back in his chair, and I could see he'd had this conversation before. I'm saying that either there's been a mistake in our records about your blood type, or, he paused, or Emma isn't biologically yours. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a baby was crying. There must be a mistake, I said. My voice sounded far away. I'm her father. I was there when she was born. I signed the birth certificate. I understand, Dr. Patterson said gently, and legally that makes you her father regardless of biology. But the science here is very clear. We need to talk about biology. I don't remember the drive home. I remember Sarah asking if everything was okay, and I remember saying yes, just some paperwork about insurance. I remember Emma falling asleep in her car seat, her purple cast resting on her lap. I remember pulling into our driveway and seeing our house, the house we'd bought 3 years ago, the one with the blue shutters Sarah had picked out, the garden she'd planted, the tire swing I'd hung from the oak tree. I remember thinking, this is my life. This is my family. And then I remember thinking, or is it? That night, after Emma was asleep, I found Sarah in the kitchen. She was loading the dishwasher, humming something under her breath. She looked up when I walked in, smiled. Emma's already asking when she can go back to the park, she said. I told her we'd wait until the cast comes off. Sarah, I said, we need to talk. She must have heard something in my voice because she stopped, dish in hand, water dripping onto the floor. What's wrong? I pulled out my phone, showed her the photo I'd taken of Emma's blood work. I'd asked Dr. Patterson if I could photograph it, said I needed it for our records. He'd hesitated, then nodded. Sarah looked at the screen. I watched her face carefully, watched for surprise, confusion, shock. What I saw instead was recognition. And then fear. Sarah, I said quietly, Emma's blood type is AB negative. Mine is O positive. Yours is A positive. Do you understand what that means? She set the dish down, slowly, like she was buying time. There must be a mistake with the test. That's what I said, but the doctor was very clear. It's not a maybe. It's not a possibility. It's a genetic impossibility. Her hand went to her throat. A nervous gesture I'd seen before. Sarah, is Emma mine? The silence stretched. Seconds. 10 seconds. 20. The refrigerator hummed. The dishwasher gurgled. It was only one time, she finally whispered. 4 words. 4 words that ended a marriage. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my laptop, opened it on the kitchen counter, logged into our shared credit card account. I'd spent the drive home thinking, remembering, adding things up. One time, I repeated. I scrolled to the statement from 18 months ago. Then why are there 47 charges at the Riverside Hotel? Her face went white. I kept scrolling. March 15th, room service. March 22nd, late checkout. April 5th, room charge. All at the Riverside Hotel. I looked up at her. Always room 3 of 12. Always charged to my card. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, because what I think is that you've been having an affair for over 1.5 years. What I think is that you got pregnant during that affair. What I think is that you've been letting me raise another man's child while charging the hotel rooms to my credit card. I love you, she said, and she was crying now. I love Emma. I love our family. Our family? I closed the laptop, slowly, carefully. There is no our family, Sarah. There's your family, and there's whatever the hell this is. The wedding photo on the mantle caught my eye. Us on the beach in Mexico 5 years ago. Sarah in her white dress, me in my linen shirt, both of us smiling like we'd just won the lottery. Behind us, the ocean stretched forever, blue and endless. We promised forever that day. She said, it was only one time. Then I showed her the credit card statements. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my car in the driveway, scrolling through our credit card history, taking screenshots. 47 charges. I counted them twice. Room service orders at 11 p.m., late checkouts at 2 p.m., minibar charges, all at the Riverside Hotel, all room 312. The sun came up. I watched it through my windshield, feeling nothing. At 7 a.m., I called Mitchell Roberts. We'd gone to college together, played on the same intramural basketball team. Now he was a family law attorney with an office downtown and a reputation for being ruthless when he needed to be. Mitchell, I said when he answered, I need a lawyer, and I need one today. His office was on the 14th floor of a glass building that reflected the morning sun like a mirror. Inside, it smelled like coffee and leather. Expensive leather. The kind that says you're paying for expertise and expertise costs money. Mitchell met me in the lobby himself, shook my hand, didn't ask questions until we were behind closed doors. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. The blood test, the confrontation, the credit card statements. He listened, took notes on a yellow legal pad, didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, tapped his pen against his desk. Okay, he said. First question, what do you want? I want the truth. I want to know if Emma is mine. And if she's not? I hadn't let myself think that far ahead. I don't know. Mitchell nodded, like this was a reasonable answer. Second question, do you want to stay married to Sarah? No. Good. That makes this simpler. He pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. This is a brief on paternity fraud cases in our state. I need you to read it tonight. All of it. Because here's what you need to understand, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Even if Emma isn't biologically yours, you signed that birth certificate. In the eyes of the law, you're her presumed father. Which means even if the DNA test comes back 0%, even if you can prove Sarah committed paternity fraud, you're still legally responsible for that child. What? Child support, medical expenses, education costs, 18 years of financial obligation, minimum. He leaned forward. The state doesn't care about biology, Tom. The state cares about the child's welfare, and right now, you're her legal father. That signature on the birth certificate, that's a contract. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. So even if she lied, even if she committed fraud, even if she was sleeping with someone else the entire time, Mitchell paused, made sure I was really hearing him. The state will make you pay for 18 years. I left Mitchell's office with that legal brief and a hollow feeling in my chest. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. 14 floors of glass and steel, and wondering how my life had become something that needed a lawyer to untangle. But Mitchell had been clear. I needed proof, real proof, medical grade, court-admissible proof. The DNA test kit arrived 3 days later in a plain white box. Genetrak Laboratories, official seal. Instructions printed on glossy paper. 2 sets of swabs, one for me, one for Emma. I read the instructions 5 times. Swab the inside of the cheek, 30 seconds each side. Let it air dry. Seal it in the provided envelope. Mail it back in the prepaid package. Simple, clinical. The kind of thing that shouldn't feel like betrayal. But it did. I waited until Sarah went to her book club, Tuesday nights, 7 to 9, Never missed one in 3 years. Emma was in her pajamas watching cartoons on the couch, her purple cast propped on a pillow. "Hey, Munchkin," I said, sitting down next to her. "Remember how the doctor took that test at the hospital? I need to do one more, just to make sure everything's okay with your arm." She looked up at me with those dark eyes that looked nothing like mine, and now I couldn't stop noticing. "Does it hurt?" "Not even a little. Just a quick swab in your mouth, like when the doctor looks at your throat." "Okay, Daddy." Daddy. That word. 4 years of daddy. 4 years of goodnight kisses and piggyback rides and tea parties with stuffed animals. 4 years of being someone's whole world. I did her swab first, 30 seconds each side, just like the instructions said. She made a face when I held her tongue down, but didn't complain. When I was done, she went right back to her cartoons. Then I did mine. Opened my mouth, swabbed my own cheek, felt the rough texture of the cotton against the soft tissue. 30 seconds, 60 seconds, done. I sealed them both in their envelopes, labeled them with the case number Genitrack had assigned, put them in the prepaid package. The mailbox was at the end of our driveway. It took me 10 minutes to walk there, 10 minutes to drop the package in, 10 minutes to walk back, 72 hours for results. They'd email me directly. Mitchell had arranged it, confidential, private, just me and the truth. The envelope arrived certified mail. My hands shook for 5 minutes before I could open it. I was in my car when I finally did it. Parked at the far end of the grocery store parking lot where I'd driven after work, telling Sarah I needed to pick up milk. I had the milk. It was in a bag on the passenger seat, sweating condensation. But first, I had this envelope. The seal was official. The letterhead was embossed. Genitrack Laboratories. Case number GT 2024-78453. Patient, Emma Louise Harrison. Alleged father, Thomas James Harrison. My vision blurred for a second. I blinked it clear. There was a graph. Markers with technical names I didn't understand. Loci and alleles and probability calculations. And then at the bottom, in bold print, the only line that mattered. Paternity conclusion. Thomas James Harrison is excluded as the biological father of Emma Louise Harrison. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. Not 0.00%. Not unlikely or improbable, 0.00%. 4 years of bedtime stories, 0% of my DNA. I sat there in that parking lot for an hour. The milk got warm. I didn't move. I just stared at that number until the sun set and the parking lot lights came on. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. "Where are you? Emma's asking for you." Emma. My daughter. Except she wasn't. Except she was. Except I didn't know what she was anymore. I went home. I put the milk in the fridge. I kissed Emma goodnight, read her 3 chapters of the book we were working through, something about a mouse who wanted to be brave. She fell asleep before the 3rd chapter ended, her small hand holding onto my thumb. I stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe. Her nightlight cast shadows on the walls, stars and moons that rotated slowly. I'd installed that nightlight myself, drilling the holes, running the cord, making sure it was secure. I'd built her crib, painted her room, baby-proofed every corner and outlet, changed 1,000 diapers, walked the floor at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep, sang her songs I made up because I couldn't remember the real words, taught her to say please and thank you and I love you. 4 years, 0%. The DNA report was on the kitchen table when Sarah came downstairs. I'd left it there, face up, bold print visible. She stopped when she saw it. Her hand went to her mouth. "Tom!" "Don't," I said. My voice was quiet, controlled. "Just don't." She picked up the report, read it, set it down like it was burning her fingers. "I can't explain." "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. There's no version of this story where you're not the villain. She's still your daughter. Sarah said, and her voice cracked. "You're still her father. This piece of paper doesn't change that." "This piece of paper changes everything." I stood up, walked to the window. Our backyard was dark except for the porch light. Emma's swing set was a shadow against the fence. "You let me sign a birth certificate for a child that wasn't mine. You let me fall in love with her. You let me believe I was her father, and you knew. You knew the whole time." "I didn't know for sure." "Don't lie to me anymore, Sarah. I'm done with lies." She was crying now, mascara running down her face, the same way it had at the hospital. "I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And then you were so good with her, so happy, and I thought maybe it didn't matter." "It matters," I said. "It matters that you took away my choice. It matters that you committed fraud. It matters that you looked me in the eye every single day for 4 years and lied." The silence between us felt like a canyon. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now." I turned to look at her. "Now I talk to my lawyer. Now we figure out how you're going to explain this to a judge." Emma's drawing appeared 2 days later. She'd made it at preschool, construction paper and crayons, and that fierce concentration 4-year-olds have when they're creating something important. She ran to me when I picked her up, waving the paper. "Daddy! Daddy! Look what I made!" It was us. 2 stick figures, one tall and one small. Purple sky, yellow sun with rays that went all the way to the edges of the paper. Hearts. So many hearts. Big ones, small ones. Hearts with smiley faces inside them. At the bottom, in letters her teacher had probably helped her spell, "Me and Daddy." She handed it to me with sticky fingers, grape jelly from snack time. "This is us forever, right, Daddy?" I knelt down to her level, looked at those dark eyes, thought about DNA and blood types and legal documents, and none of it mattered because she was 4 years old, and all she wanted was for me to say yes. "Right, Daddy?" she asked again, and her voice was smaller now, uncertain. I pulled her into a hug. She smelled like crayons and grape jelly and that kid shampoo Sarah bought in bulk. She wrapped her good arm around my neck, the purple cast bumping against my shoulder. "Right," I said, and I meant it, even though I didn't know how, even though everything was broken. "Right. If you've ever loved someone who wasn't yours by blood, but was yours in every other way, just drop a heart in the comments, because that's where I was, torn between 2 truths that couldn't both exist." But loving Emma didn't mean letting Sarah get away with fraud. Mitchell recommended a private investigator, Marcus Chen. Former police detective, 30 years on the force, retired early to start his own firm. Specializes in infidelity cases, fraud investigations, anything that needs discretion and documentation. We met at a coffee shop downtown. He was smaller than I expected, mid-60s, gray hair, reading glasses on a chain around his neck. Looked like someone's grandfather. Talked like a cop. "Your lawyer filled me in," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Wife had an affair. Kid's not yours. You need to find the father. That about right?" "That's right." "You want proof for court or just peace of mind?" "Court. I want every detail documented." He nodded. "Smart. You'd be surprised how many guys just want to know and then do nothing about it. Not you, though. You're the smart kind of angry." He pulled out a notepad. "Tell me about the affair. What do you know?" I told him about the credit card statements, the hotel charges, room 312, 47 times over 18 months. Marcus wrote it down. Room 312. That's a pattern. People having affairs are creatures of habit. Same place, same time, same room if they can manage it. Makes them feel like they've got a secret world. He looked up. "You said your wife works. Where?" "Hartwell Marketing. She's an account manager." "Office or remote?" "Office, downtown." "Hartwell," he repeated, writing. "I'll start there. Office affairs are the most common. Close proximity, shared stress, opportunities to slip away during lunch hours or after work drinks. He finished his coffee. Give me 2 weeks, I'll find him, and once I find him, I'll document everything. "10 days later, Marcus called. Got him. You want the good news or the bad news?" "Is there good news?" "Good news is I found your guy fast. Bad news is you're not going to like who he is." We met again at the same coffee shop. This time Marcus brought a folder, manila, thick, the kind that means someone's life is about to change. He slid it across the table. Inside, surveillance photos. Sarah meeting a man at a restaurant. Sarah getting into a car with the same man. Sarah and the man walking into the Riverside Hotel. Timestamps on every photo, dates, locations. "Daniel Foster," Marcus said. "Age 38, lives in Riverside, works at Hartwell Marketing." He paused. "He's not just any colleague. He's her boss, senior vice president, been with the company 12 years. I stared at the photos. Daniel Foster, tall, dark hair, expensive suit, good looking in that way that made you immediately not trust him. "Her boss," I said slowly. "Yeah. Which makes this interesting from a legal standpoint. Power dynamic, workplace harassment potential, whole ethical minefield." Marcus pulled out another set of documents. "But here's where it gets really interesting. Daniel Foster is married, 2 kids, lives in a nice house in the suburbs, coaches Little League." "Of course he did." "And he knew about Emma?" I asked. Marcus smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Oh, he knew. I pulled phone records, legal subpoena through your lawyer, text messages going back 5 years. Want to guess when they started getting romantic?" "When?" He slid the folder across. "Read it yourself. March 2019. That's 6 months before Emma was conceived." The texts were printed out, highlighted in yellow. I scanned them, feeling my stomach turn with each line. Sarah, "Tonight was amazing." Daniel, "We should do it again. Same place?" Sarah, "Room 312? Daniel, "Our place. March, April, May, June, July. Dozens of texts, meeting times, hotel confirmations. And then in August 2019, Sarah, "I'm late." Daniel, "How late?" Sarah, 3 weeks. I took a test. It's positive." Daniel, "Shit, what are you going to do?" Sarah, "I don't know. Tom thinks we've been trying. He doesn't know about you." Daniel, "Keep it that way. I can't get divorced. You know that." Sarah, "So what do I do?" Daniel, "Tell him it's his. He'll never know. And even if he finds out, he signed the birth certificate. That makes him responsible." I read that last line 3 times. Marcus watched me. He's not just any colleague. He's her boss. And he knew about Emma from the beginning. I took those texts home, printed them out, set up my phone to record. Sarah came home at 6:30, like always. Made dinner, pasta with marinara sauce, Emma's favorite. We ate at the kitchen table, Emma chattering about her day, neither Sarah nor I saying much. After Emma was in bed, I brought out the texts. "We need to talk," I said. She looked at the papers and her face went pale. "Where did you get those?" "Private investigator, legal subpoena, all admissible in court." I spread them out on the table. "Daniel Foster, your boss, the father of your child. Want to explain?" She sat down slowly. "Tom, you knew Emma wasn't mine before she was born, didn't you?" Silence. "Sarah." My voice was steady, calm. The recording app on my phone was running in my pocket. "You knew." "I thought you'd never find out," she whispered. "And you were always going to be a better father than him anyway. So what's the harm?" There it was, in her own words, recorded. I leaned forward. "The harm is that you committed fraud. The harm is that you stole 4 years of my life. The harm is that you let me raise another man's child while he knew, Sarah, and you both decided I was just the convenient solution. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." I pulled out another document, the one that had arrived that afternoon. This is a subpoena for Daniel Foster's DNA, court ordered. He's going to take a paternity test whether he wants to or not. Her hands were shaking. You can't do this. Think about Emma. Think about what this will do to her. I think about Emma every day. I think about how she deserves a father who chose her, not one who was tricked into it. I think about how she deserves the truth. I stood up. You don't get to use Emma as a shield. You did this, not me. You. I left her sitting at that table, surrounded by the evidence of her lies. The timeline came together piece by piece. Medical records from Sarah's OB/GYN. Conception date estimated between March 15th and March 22, 2020. I pulled up my work calendar. March 2020. Right there in digital ink. Business trip. Seattle. Morrison Industries presentation. March 17th, 21. I remembered that trip. The Morrison deal was huge. 6 months of work, presentations, negotiations. I'd flown out on a Tuesday, spent 4 days in meetings, closed the deal on Friday, came home exhausted and proud. Sarah had picked me up at the airport, kissed me, said she'd missed me. I pulled out my credit card statement. Hotel in Seattle, rental car, restaurant charges, Uber receipts, all time stamped. March 18th, 9:47 a.m., coffee meeting, Seattle. March 18th, 11:15 a.m., lunch with Morrison team, Seattle. March 18th, 8:30 p.m., dinner with clients, Seattle. And then I pulled up Sarah's credit card, the one she'd gotten for emergencies that was linked to my account. March 18th, 2:15 p.m., Riverside Hotel, room charge. March 18th, 6:45 p.m., room service, Riverside Hotel. March 18th, 11:30 p.m., late checkout fee, Riverside Hotel. I was in Seattle closing the Morrison deal. She was in Miami, conceiving someone else's child. Not an accident, not a mistake. Planned, deliberate. While I was 2,000 miles away, working to support our family, she was in room 312 creating a new one. I printed everything, the medical records, the calendar, the credit card statements, the business trip itinerary, highlighted the dates, drew lines connecting them. The evidence was overwhelming. The timeline was perfect. The fraud was undeniable. My mother's letter arrived on a Thursday. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope, looping cursive, the kind they don't teach anymore, floral stationery that smelled like her lavender hand cream. I opened it, standing at my apartment. I'd moved out 2 weeks earlier, gotten a small place near Emma's preschool so I could still do drop-offs and pickups. The apartment was mostly empty, furniture from IKEA, boxes I hadn't unpacked, but I sat down to read Mom's letter. My dearest Tom, I've been thinking about what to say to you for weeks now, praying about it, losing sleep over it, so I'm just going to write what's in my heart and trust that you'll understand. Love isn't biology, son. I know that better than anyone. You remember your Aunt Claire adopted both her children, and they're as much family as anyone who shares our blood. So when I tell you this, I'm not saying it as someone who believes DNA makes a father. I'm saying it as someone who loves you and wants you to be happy. Love isn't biology, but truth still matters. What Sarah did, that wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. She chose to lie to you. She chose to let you sign that birth certificate knowing it was fraud. She chose her comfort over your truth. And that matters. You can love Emma forever. You can be the father she needs, the father she deserves, the father you've already been for 4 years. You can show up at every parent-teacher conference and birthday party and Christmas morning. You can tuck her in at night and teach her to ride a bike and walk her down the aisle someday. And you can still hold Sarah accountable for stealing 4 years of truth from you. Both things can be true. Both things can exist at the same time. You don't have to choose between loving Emma and seeking justice. You don't have to forgive someone who hasn't earned forgiveness just because it would be easier or quieter or less messy. Your father used to say, we don't leave family, and I believe that. But I also believe family is built on truth. on trust, on showing up even when it's hard. Sarah broke that. She left you the moment she decided her secrets were more important than your right to know. So you do what you need to do, Tom. You take her to court if that's what justice requires. You protect Emma through all of it, and you remember that being a father isn't about DNA. It's about showing up every single day. In truth, I love you. Emma loves you. That's what matters. Mom, I folded that letter carefully, put it back in the envelope, carried it to court every single day after that. The courtroom smelled like furniture polish and old paper, wood paneling on the walls, high ceilings, fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly ill. I'd never been inside a courtroom before this, never needed to be. Now I was sitting at a table with Mitchell, surrounded by folders and binders and evidence that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Behind us, the gallery was full. My mother in the second row, some of Sarah's family, people I didn't recognize. 40 people watching my life get dissected in public. Sarah sat at the other table with her lawyer, Victoria Chen, expensive suit, confident smile, the kind of lawyer who could make lies sound reasonable. Judge Anderson entered, late 50s, gray hair, reading glasses, a face that had seen every version of human dysfunction and wasn't impressed by any of it. We all stood, sat, waited. This is a hearing to address Mr. Harrison's petition regarding paternity fraud, Judge Anderson said, opening the file in front of her. Ms. Chen, your opening statement. Victoria stood, smoothed her jacket. Your Honor, my client made a mistake. She had a brief affair during a difficult time in her marriage, but Mr. Harrison signed Emma's birth certificate voluntarily. He has acted as her father for 4 years. He has formed a bond with this child, and now, out of anger and spite, he wants to walk away from his responsibilities. This isn't about fraud. This is about a man who can't forgive his wife and wants to punish an innocent child. She sat down. The words hung in the air like accusations. Mitchell stood. He didn't rush, took his time, picked up the evidence binder. Your Honor, he said, and his voice was calm, measured. This isn't about anger. This isn't about spite. This is about systematic, premeditated fraud that lasted for 5 years. He opened the binder. The evidence will show that Ms. Harrison knowingly conceived a child with another man, that she allowed Mr. Harrison to believe he was the father, that she let him sign a birth certificate based on lies, that she and the biological father discussed this deception in writing and agreed to hide the truth. He pulled out a document, held it up. This is a DNA test from Genetrack Laboratories. It shows 0% probability that Mr. Harrison is Emma's biological father. 0.00%. He pulled out another document. This is Emma's blood work from County General Hospital, showing a genetic impossibility between her blood type and Mr. Harrison's. Another document. These are text messages between Ms. Harrison and Daniel Foster, the biological father, in which they explicitly discuss deceiving Mr. Harrison, in which Mr. Foster refers to my client as an insurance policy. He set the documents down, looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, my client signed that birth certificate based on fraud. He was denied informed consent. He was robbed of the choice to decide whether to raise another man's child. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated deception, and the law recognizes fraud as grounds to contest paternity. Mitchell sat down. I could feel 40 pairs of eyes on the back of my neck. Judge Anderson looked at the evidence binder. I'll hear testimony. Ms. Chen, call your first witness. Sarah took the stand, swore to tell the truth, sat down with her hands folded in her lap. Victoria walked her through it gently. The affair started as an emotional connection. Daniel was her supervisor. They worked late hours. One thing led to another. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. She'd ended it when she found out she was pregnant. And did you tell Mr. Harrison about the affair? Victoria asked. No, Sarah said quietly. I was ashamed. I thought if I ended it and never told him, we could move forward. Did you know for certain that Daniel Foster was Emma's father? Sarah paused. I wasn't sure. I hoped Tom was the father. But you didn't tell him about the affair. No, I didn't want to hurt him over something that might not matter. Victoria nodded sympathetically. And when Emma was born, Mr. Harrison was present? Yes, he was so happy. He held her and cried and told me she was perfect. Sarah's voice cracked. He's been a wonderful father. Emma adores him. This will destroy her. No further questions, Victoria said. Mitchell stood for cross-examination. He didn't look angry. He looked like a surgeon preparing to operate. Ms. Harrison, he said, you testified that you weren't sure who Emma's father was. Is that correct? Yes. But you exchanged text messages with Daniel Foster where you discussed the pregnancy, correct? Yes. Let me read one of those texts. Mitchell pulled out a document. August 2019, you wrote, I'm late, 3 weeks, I took a test. It's positive. And Mr. Foster responded, what are you going to do? And you said, I don't know. Tom thinks we've been trying. He doesn't know about you. Does that sound familiar? Sarah's face was pale. Yes. So you told Daniel Foster about the pregnancy, but not your husband. I was scared. And Daniel Foster responded, tell him it's his. He'll never know. Correct? Yes. Did you follow that advice? Silence. Ms. Harrison, did you tell your husband the baby was his, knowing it might not be true? Yes, she whispered. Mitchell picked up another document. And in March 2020, when Emma was conceived, where were you? I don't remember. Let me refresh your memory. Mr. Harrison was in Seattle on a business trip from March 17th to March 21st. We have flight records, hotel receipts, credit card statements, all time-stamped. He held up the documents. And during that same time period, you charged room 312 at the Riverside Hotel to your credit card 3 separate times, correct? Yes. So while your husband was working in Seattle, believing you were home, you were actually meeting Daniel Foster at a hotel. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. No further questions. Sarah stepped down. She wouldn't look at me. If you're thinking what I was thinking right then, if you're feeling that moment when the truth finally comes to light, drop a in the comments. The petitioner calls Daniel Foster, Mitchell said. The courtroom doors opened. Daniel walked in, the same man from Marcus's surveillance photos. Expensive suit, confident walk. But I could see the nervousness around his eyes. He was sworn in, sat down, looked everywhere except at me. Mitchell didn't waste time. Mr. Foster, you work at Hartwell Marketing, correct? Yes. And what is your position? Senior Vice President. And Ms. Harrison works under your supervision? Yes. How long have you been having an affair with her? Victoria objected. Judge Anderson overruled. Daniel shifted in his seat. About 5 years, but it ended. When did it end? 2 years ago. Really? Because we have credit card records showing you and Ms. Harrison meeting at the Riverside Hotel as recently as 6 months ago. Daniel's jaw tightened. We were discussing work. In room 312, the same room you'd been using for 5 years. Silence. Mitchell pulled out his phone. I'm going to read you a text message. February 14th, 2020, from Ms. Harrison to you. Tom asked if I wanted to try for another baby. I told him maybe next year. And you responded, smart, let's not complicate things. Do you remember that text? I might have. And then this one, March 2020, after Emma was conceived. Ms. Harrison texted you, I'm worried he'll find out. And you responded. Mitchell paused for effect. You responded, he won't. And even if he does, he signed the birth certificate. We're safe. The courtroom was silent. You called Mr. Harrison an insurance policy, didn't you? I never said. March 22, 2020. Text from you to Ms. Harrison. Your paternity insurance policy is working perfectly. He'll never know. And even if he does, he signed the birth certificate. That makes him responsible. Those are your exact words, Mr. Foster. Daniel's face went red. I was trying to reassure her. You were conspiring to commit fraud. You knew Emma might be yours. You knew Ms. Harrison was lying to her husband, and you encouraged it because it was convenient for you, because you didn't want the responsibility, because you wanted someone else to raise your child and pay for your mistakes. That's not... Did you know Emma might be your biological daughter? Silence. Mr. Foster, did you know? I suspected, he finally said. And did you ever tell your wife about the affair? No. Did you ever offer to support Emma financially? Sarah said she didn't need... Did you ever meet Emma? Ever ask to see her? Ever wonder what she looked like or how she was doing? I couldn't risk. You couldn't risk your comfortable life being disrupted, so you let another man raise your daughter. You let him love her, pay for her, show up for her, while you hid behind that birth certificate signature and called it insurance. Mitchell walked back to our table, picked up one final document. This is a court-ordered DNA test, Mr. Foster, taken last week. Would you like to tell the court what it says? Daniel looked at Judge Anderson, at Sarah, at the floor. It says I'm Emma's biological father, he said quietly. 99.99% probability? Yes. Mitchell turned to Judge Anderson. The defense wants us to believe my client signed that birth certificate voluntarily, with full knowledge, with informed consent. The evidence shows the opposite. It shows fraud. It shows conspiracy. It shows two people who knowingly deceived my client and then used his signature, obtained through lies, as a shield against consequences. He sat down. I watched Daniel squirm as Mitchell read aloud. Your paternity insurance policy is working perfectly. The judge took a 30-minute recess. Mitchell and I waited in the hallway. My mother brought me coffee I didn't drink. How do you think it's going? I asked. Hard to say, Mitchell said, but the evidence is strong. The texts alone are damning. When we returned, Judge Anderson was already at her bench, reading through documents. I've reviewed the evidence, she said. The DNA tests, the text messages, the timeline, the testimony. She looked up, looked at Sarah, looked at Daniel, looked at me. This case presents difficult questions. On one hand, Mr. Harrison signed a birth certificate. He has acted as Emma's father for 4 years. He has established a parental relationship with the child. Courts generally favor stability for children and are reluctant to disrupt established parental bonds. My heart sank. However, Judge Anderson continued, the evidence of fraud here is overwhelming. Ms. Harrison and Mr. Foster engaged in deliberate deception. They discussed that deception in writing. They used Mr. Harrison's signature as what Mr. Foster himself called an insurance policy. That's not a mistake. That's not an affair that went wrong. That's calculated fraud. She picked up the DNA report. Mr. Harrison signed that birth certificate based on a fundamental lie. He was denied informed consent. Under our state's laws, fraud vitiates consent, which means that signature obtained through deliberate deception is voidable. She looked at Sarah's lawyer. Ms. Chen, your argument that Mr. Harrison is trying to abandon his child doesn't hold up to scrutiny. He's not seeking to terminate all contact with Emma. He's seeking recognition that he was defrauded. There's a difference. Judge Anderson signed a document. I'm granting Mr. Harrison's petition. The birth certificate signature is set aside based on fraud. Daniel Foster is hereby established as Emma's biological and legal father. Mr. Foster, you are responsible for child support, medical expenses, and all other financial obligations. Daniel's face went white. However, the judge continued, looking at me, I'm also establishing a visitation schedule for Mr. Harrison if he wishes to maintain a relationship with Emma. Because despite the fraud, despite the lies, despite everything, 4 years of being someone's father doesn't disappear with a DNA test. She closed the file. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, my mother hugged me. Mitchell shook my hand, told me we'd talk about next steps. Sarah walked past without saying a word, her lawyer following close behind. Daniel caught up to me at my car. Harrison, wait. I turned, looked at him. The man who'd slept with my wife. The man who'd hidden for 4 years while I raised his daughter. The man who'd called me an insurance policy. What do you want? I asked. He ran his hand through his hair. Look, I know you hate me. You have every right to. But Emma, she doesn't know any of this. She still thinks you're her dad. And I don't know how to be a father. I stared at him. You should have thought about that before you told Sarah I was the insurance policy. I know. Will you still see her? Because she's going to ask for you. And I don't want to be the reason she loses you. That's rich, I said. You've been the reason for everything bad in this situation, and now you want me to clean up your mess? I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for Emma. I got in my car, rolled down the window. You're her father now, Daniel. Legally, financially, genetically. Figure it out. I drove away, watched him shrink in my rearview mirror. But here's the thing about loving someone for 4 years. You don't just stop. Emma asked for me 3 days later. Sarah called, awkward, painful, but necessary. She wants to know where you are, Sarah said. She keeps asking when you're coming home. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth. She's 4 years old, Tom. I can't tell her. Not that truth. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm not going anywhere. Tell her I'll see her soon. We met at the park. The same park where she'd fallen off the swing, where this had all started. Sarah dropped her off, didn't stay. Emma ran to me, jumped into my arms. Her cast was off now, just a slight tan line where it had been. Daddy, where have you been? Mommy said you were busy, but I missed you. I knelt down, looked at those dark eyes that weren't mine, had never been mine, would never be mine. Emma, I said, I need to talk to you about something. Okay? How do you explain DNA to a 4-year-old? How do you tell her that the person she calls daddy isn't her daddy, but also is, but also isn't? You don't, not really. You just tell her what she needs to know. You know how your friend Maya has 2 daddies? I said. How she has her daddy and her stepdaddy. Emma nodded. Well, you have something like that too. You have a biological daddy. That's the person who helped make you. And you have me, and we both love you very much. Are you going away? No, I said, and I meant it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep picking you up from school. We're going to keep reading our books. We're going to keep going to the park. None of that changes. Promise? I pulled her into a hug. Promise. She wrapped her arms around my neck. I drew you another picture. Want to see? Always. She pulled it out of her backpack. Construction paper, crayons, 2 stick figures again, hearts everywhere. That's me, she said, pointing to the small one, and that's you, forever. And here's what I learned. DNA doesn't make a father. Showing up does. And I'd shown up every day for 4 years. That doesn't stop now. Not because a judge said so, not because Sarah wanted it, not because Daniel didn't want the responsibility, because Emma deserved someone who chose her. Every single day, in truth. 6 months later, I hung a new photo in my apartment, Emma and me at the park, both of us smiling, real smiles, honest ones. My mother came over for dinner, saw the photo on the wall. That's a good picture, she said. It is. How's Emma doing? Good. She's adjusting, sees me twice a week. Daniel's trying, I'll give him that. Shows up for the scheduled visits. Pays his child support on time. Mom nodded. And Sarah? We're civil, for Emma's sake. We'll never be friends, but we can be in the same room without it being World War III. That's something. It is. She looked at the photo again. You did the right thing, Tom, taking her to court, demanding the truth, standing up for yourself. I know. And you did the right thing after, staying in Emma's life, choosing to be her father even though you didn't have to. I know that too. She hugged me. Your father used to say, we don't leave family. You proved that. But you also proved that family isn't just blood. It's choice. It's truth. It's showing up even when it's hard. After she left, I sat on my couch looking at that photo. Emma's smile, my smile, both real, both earned. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, taking Sarah to court, exposing everything, fighting for the truth. And I tell them, no, not for a second, because love without truth isn't love. It's just comfortable lies, and I deserve better than that. Emma deserves better than that. I chose the truth. And then I chose Emma, both things at the same time, not because of blood, not because of money, just because it was right. They say we don't leave family. I learned family is who tells you the truth, who shows up with honesty, not just blood, who earns it every single day. Emma's drawing is on my fridge, the new one, with both of us smiling forever. And you know what? Maybe forever doesn't mean what I thought it meant 4 years ago. Maybe forever means choosing someone every day. In truth, with your eyes open. Maybe that's the only kind of forever that matters. This is my story of found family. The people who showed up with truth, not just blood. What's yours? Share your story of someone who proved family is about choice, not DNA. I'll read every single one. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. Not revenge, not anger, not even justice, really. It's about knowing that love is a choice, family is a choice, and truth is the only foundation strong enough to build either one on. I chose truth, and then I chose love. And I'd make the same choice again, every single time.